All right. Are we live or we're just on YouTube right
Just,
now?
it's almost there. We're getting there. It's being very slow. Okay, go ahead. You're live now.
All right. I'm going to call this instruction work group meeting of the Board of Education to order. We will start this evening with public comment. Jesse, do we have anyone signed up for public comment tonight?
We do. We have one public commenter, and it is Andrea Miserelli.
Welcome, Andrea.
Hi, thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to express my sincere gratitude and appreciation for the tireless efforts and selfless dedication to our school board members. Over the weekend was National School Board Appreciation Day, and I know you guys have give up so much time and valuable contributions that you make to our community and the future of our students. So there's just such a big importance in what you do on the school board. It plays a vital role in shaping the educational landscape of our nation. And you guys are responsible for setting policies, overseeing budgets, and ensuring that our schools provides a quality education for all of our students. So your decisions impact our lives here of our children, families, and our whole Madison community, and we appreciate you for it. Or I do, I should say. So I just want to thank you for your unwavering commitment to our community and our schools and all the countless hours of your time to attend meetings, researching the issues, and making your informed decisions. Your dedication and passion are truly inspiring. I know I got some other stuff here, but I'm just going to say thank you guys so much and let you get on to your meeting. So just appreciation. I know you don't. It's a selfless job where you don't always hear the praise and you definitely get the complaints when things don't go well. So thank you.
Oh,
All right. We are now going to pass our meeting minutes. I move to approve the minutes from the instruction work group meeting dated September 9th, 2024.
second, Nikki Vandermeulen.
Thank you so much, Board Member Vandermeulen. All those or I'm sorry, Megan, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And I can see six of us, but if I'm missing somebody, will someone let me know?
Everyone's here, it looks like.
Okay, I'm sorry. Maya, did you vote?
Yep. I raised my hand.
Okay. Then the motion carries 7-0. I'm sorry, y'all. Um, I'm seeing like a lot of people, but not actually specifically board members. So I think I'm gonna have to bounce around a little bit if we're voting and in discussion tonight. And I might just kind of do like if folks want to respond to things, I might just go through the entire board to make sure I don't miss anybody.
Right.
All right. This evening, we get to have a conversation about advanced coursework and early college, including the board's investments in Avid Tops and our early college STEM Academy. We'll also be talking about work-based learning, and we will be touching on co-curricular activities. We have young people joining us this evening. We have educators joining us this evening. We have a pretty great conversation about some programs that are doing pretty tremendous work. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from everyone. I'm going to turn it over now to Cindy Green.
Good morning. Thank you. I see Dr. Gothard on here, so I think I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gothard first, and then I will get us started.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Green. It is indeed evening, not morning. You confused me for a moment. Great to see you all. Chair Muldrow, members of the board. We're in store for a really outstanding presentation tonight. You know, one of the things as I've been out engaging with the community, not just about the referendum, but about how MMSD students are doing right now, people get quite excited when the remark is made that 61% of our graduates last year earned some sort of post-secondary credit. I think it says a lot about the commitment that has been made in MMSD over the years. As I've shared in some of those meetings, I remember when this was a dream of our future high school students to have these kinds of experiences. And 61% is no small feat. However, it also is an opportunity for us to deepen this work and make sure that more and more students have these same opportunities. Tonight, you'll learn about some of the efforts underway, about how we're going to do that. And it's exciting for me that we get to also talk with one of our East High School scholars a little bit later in the discussion as well. Assistant Superintendent Green has a number of staff who will be joining us tonight. Cindy, if you can remind each of them to introduce themselves as they present as well, so we know who's on the call. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Cindy. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Chair Muldrow, and thank you, Dr. Gothard. And I think I said morning, tells you what kind of day it's been. Good evening, everybody. I'm getting used to back in the day when we presented Zoom and I had to go back and tap my memory to remember how to do this. So thank you. Before we get started, I do want to just acknowledge who is with us tonight. We have an amazing group. And then as they actually share their content, they can also reintroduce themselves. But part of the team tonight is our Executive Director of Secondary Programs, Mary Jankovic. We also have our Director of CTE and Pathways, Mitch Starosik. We have our Director of College and Career Readiness, Langston Evans. We have two of our amazing staff from La Follette. We'll do a spotlight on La Follette, Annie Branks and Darcy Paquette, who are both AVID coordinators and also our teachers. And then we have Lamine Traore, who is an East High School junior, who is going to be sharing a little bit of his experience. And then I will pause before we go into our second topic. Jesse, thank you so much for sharing the screen. And I am going to get us going. If you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. As always, we like to start with our strategic framework goals. Tonight, I think you will see evidence of how we are truly trying to uplift all three goals. The first, which is really present in our content tonight, every child is on track to graduate college, career, community ready. We'll be able to showcase some ways that we're doing that outside of the traditional academic outcomes. Every district and every school is a place where children and families thrive. I think tonight you will hear both how our staff are doing some amazing work and what they're doing in service of our students to thrive. And then African-American children and youth excel in school. Some of the data that we will share with you tonight, we're really proud of the success and the work that we have done, specifically focused on students that identify as Black. As Dr. Gothard said, we have more work to do, but tonight will be an example of where intentionality and strategy come together that actually produce some strong outcomes. Next slide, please. So tonight, our presentation is really going to be focused on the investments and the impacts from college and career opportunities. Those specifically will be ones related to early college and work-based learning. In addition to that, we will have a minor presentation on co-curriculars. What I think is really important about tonight is the way that we are presenting data is new for how we've thought about it in the district, and one that I hope the Board of Education and our community will appreciate. I also think it's important to know that we have this ever-changing landscape of what our young people are interested in doing post-high school. Previous years, it was always thinking about 2- and 4-year colleges, and we know many of our students are interested in other avenues such as the trades, going into apprenticeships, and tonight's data will show you how we're really thinking about creating these opportunities for our students so that they do have every possible choice upon graduation. Next slide, please. And as you know, we are constantly trying to improve, and how we think about our improvement efforts. 61% of our students graduating with some college credit is great, and we have much more work to do. So we're continuing to think about how this aligns to our district improvement goals, thinking about the strategies that we are using, our core principles of improvement so that we can always reflect and adjust, and how we're using data and our routines to drive those decisions. Next slide, please, Jesse. This slide should look familiar to the Board of Education. We've shared it with you in August and also again in September. It shows how we have set goals for ourselves over the next few years, aligned to our overall strategic framework goals. It's helping us focus our system efforts on reaching that improvement that we want to see. As you will see throughout the year, each one of our topics at the instruction work group this year will connect to our overall plan. Tonight, we are providing updates on our system-wide strategies and or as sometimes we like to call our inputs that we believe will most directly impact our high school completion rates and attendance. You will hear from members of our secondary team who will share how advanced coursework opportunities are directly helping our students not only meet their graduation requirements, but accelerate their progress towards their credit ratio. We will also talk about co-curricular participation in MMSD, how our students are accessing these opportunities for engagement outside of the classroom. We believe when students feel a sense of belonging and feel connected to our school community, they're more likely to attend and also more likely to graduate. Some of these system level strategies tonight will give you a little bit of an insight in how we are attempting to achieve our district improvement plan goals. I hope it'll be clear how these strategies are directly connected to our overall outcome performance. Next slide, please. And so this slide talks a little bit about the research and what we are learning about the direct impact on our investments. We know that students that take advanced placement courses are more likely to attend college and graduate on time. We also know that students that are enrolled in dual enrollment courses are more likely to graduate from college and less likely to require remedial coursework. As I mentioned before, co-curricular participation, they are more likely to perform in the top quartile of math and reading assessments and more likely to persist in college. Our work-based learning participants are more likely to have a high-value post-secondary plan and are better able to draw connections between the classroom content and authentic application. One thing that we hear constantly from our students that they desire. On the right-hand side, you see a little bit of a snapshot from last year. You might recall that we were here in November talking about similar data. And what we are seeing now is that 56% of our students from last year were immediately enrolled into post-secondary. That's a 2 or a 4-year college. As Dr. Gothard mentioned, 61% of our students are graduating with some type of college credit. That's based on the class of 2023-24. Last year, also, 60% of our students that left MMSD were leaving with a high value credential, which we'll talk more about in our presentation. So we have some good data that's showing great progress, and we still have areas of improvement that we will also share with you tonight. Next slide, please. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Mary Jankovic, our Executive Director of Secondary Programs and Pathways, and she's going to walk you through some of the specific data. Thank you. Did we lose Mary? Hold on. Sorry, everybody. Well, just like the previous years of the virtual world, I don't know if her internet, something happened. So I think I will start and I will begin walking us through the data. And if she joins my team, if you see her, please pause me so that she can continue. How does that sound, Board Member Muldrow, to keep us moving forward?
That makes so much sense to me, Cindy. I realized as we began this evening that I did not necessarily explain to the community why we are virtual this evening. So I just think it makes sense to let folks know that we shifted to virtual really quickly this afternoon because there was a power outage at the Doyle building where we usually have the instruction work group and board meetings. And so we're a little flexible tonight, and we appreciate that folks are working with us, and hopefully we get to hear from the folks. We're really excited to get to be a part of this presentation this evening.
Yes, and thank you for sharing that. That's why we're having to tap back into our muscle memory of how we do presentations virtually. So while Mary maybe tries to log back on, I'm not sure what happened. I'll walk us through this slide so that we don't have any pauses in our presentation. So this first slide that you have here is one of the ways that we identify early college credit. Dual transcripted credit are courses that happen on our high school campuses with our teachers. Our teachers that teach dual transcripted courses are ones that have to be qualified from the Higher Learning Commission, meaning that they have to have additional set of criteria that they meet in order to teach college level classes. It is a really low barrier opportunity for our students, an accessible way for all of our students to take advantage of these types of courses. What you will see is I'll orient you to what we have on the slides. We're looking at data based on proportionality. So in the gray, you see the proportion or the percent of students in our overall student population in each one of these student groups. For example, Asian students, 7.2% of our overall student population identify as Asian. And then what you will see in green bars are 5 years worth of data trends based on proportionality for each one of these student groups. So if we look at students that identify as Black, we have 5 years worth of trend data on the percent of students that took dual transcripted credited courses and the ratio of that group of students compared to all other students that took dual transcripted credit courses. For school year 24, you will see that of all of the students that took dual transcripted credited courses, 23.4% of those students identified as Black. So this means we had overrepresentation compared to our overall student population of students that identify as Black that were taking these courses. Let me talk about it from the other end so that I can explain it again. If we look at students that are eligible for free and reduced lunch, 47% of our overall student population are eligible for free and reduced lunch. Last school year 24, 55% of the students that took dual transcripted credit were students that were eligible for free and reduced lunch. We are at minimum wanting to see proportionality across our bar graphs, meaning the number of students that take these courses represent our overall student population. For students groups that we've been trying to privilege, or student groups that we've been trying to intentionally serve, such as our students that identify as Black, Hispanic, students with an IEP, or English learners, we like to see overrepresentation in our bar graphs when we're looking at proportionality. For our dual transcripted credited courses, as you can see, we are doing a better job of ensuring that we are privileging the students that could benefit the most from earning this type of college credit. I will go to the next slide and talk through the next set of data.
Cindy, can I ask a question? Chair, may I ask a question quickly?
Sure, Nikki, but I do want to ask folks to hold questions to that until that portion of the presentation, unless that's where we're at right now, Cindy.
No, but go ahead and ask your question, Board Member Vandermeulen, and then from that point forward, as Board Member Mulder said, we do have moments in time that we will intentionally pause.
Absolutely. I just noticed that students with an IEP has dropped significantly to 11.2%, it looks like, or is that last year's? I'm trying to tell.
That was in school year Yep, that was in school year 23. Last school year, it went up to 18.7.
Okay, I was looking at the wrong year. Sorry, the colors are similar, so I wanted to make sure I wasn't reading that wrong.
Yeah. Yes, and doing this virtually this way, yes, it takes a little more time
Understood.
to really look at the data. So thank you.
Just wanted to make sure on that. Thank you.
Yep.
No, thank you for highlighting that growth. I think it's exciting that you know, allowed for us to notice the difference between 11% and 18% over the course of the last year. I think that's really an exciting thing to highlight and to get to talk about accurately. So thanks for asking for clarity, Board Member Vandermeulen.
Thank
We'll
you.
get back into it.
Yes. Thank you. Next slide, please, Jesse. Dual enrollment. So dual enrollment also is college credit bearing courses. Dual enrollment, however, happens is on the college campuses. Examples of dual enrollment are things like our Early College STEM Academy, our new Early College Education Academy, coursework such as Start College Now, like our Fire Academy, or coursework that students may take at Edgewood or at UW-Madison, where they are taking a variety of courses there as well. So this means that these courses are a little less accessible for all students because students have to leave our campuses to access that, but they are able to take multiple courses at a given time based on that. We saw from the school year 23 to school year 24 an increase of 11% in credit attainment versus this option, dual enrollment. So we're seeing more students being able to access this coursework. But again, this is an area where this is exciting for some, but not necessarily always available for all due to it being on other campuses and not on our campuses. The way the data is presented is very similar, or I shouldn't say similar, is the same as the slide before, where we look at our overall representation of our student groups by percentage in gray. And then we have 5 years worth of trends that show, based on the students that access this type of coursework, the percent in each one of these student groups. So again, I will take a minute to show just a few areas to give examples. If we look on the right, students that identify as English learners, we all know our student population for English learners is 27%. Last school year, of all of the students that access dual enrollment coursework, 36% of those students identified as English learners. We have some areas to celebrate here where we're either seeing proportionality or even overrepresentation. And then we have other areas where it's still an opportunity for us to continue to improve and increase representation of our students taking dual enrollment courses. If you could go to the next slide, please, Jesse. Another way our students access college credit is through advanced placement. The difference with advanced placement courses is in order for the students to earn the college credit, they have to do one extra step. They have to take an exam that they pay for, or as a fee is waived depending on their eligibility for free and reduced lunch. And then with that exam, they have to receive a score of 3 or higher, between 3 and 5, the highest is 5, in order to earn the college credit. Advanced placement courses are a great benefit to students in general because it is college course content. But in order to receive that credit for the college credit, they do have to have that extra step of an exam. That is one difference between this type of early college coursework and the other two that I explained. In MMSD, this is the largest credit for college opportunity that we see, 63% of all of our enrollments. Some new courses that we've added in recent years is the AP African American Studies. We've got an AP Pre-Calc, AP Physics, and we're also going to expand AP Seminar, which is English credit bearing. The data is outlined the same way as the last two slides, where it is focusing on proportionality. The gray is our overall district percentage for each one of these student groups. And the green bars outline 5 years worth of trends. You'll see that we have also had some areas of improvement and also have many areas where we need to continue to ensure representation and proportionality show up in every one of our classes and in our overall data. For example, 18.2% of our students identify as Black, yet for last school year 24, out of all of the students that took AP courses, only 7.2% of those students identify as Black. Similarly, if we look at students that identify and have eligibility for free and reduced lunch, 47% of our overall student population are eligible for free and reduced lunch. And of all of the students that took AP courses, 30% of those students were eligible for free and reduced lunch. Next slide, please. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mitch Starosik. He is our Director of CTE and Pathways, and he's going to talk through this data slide.
Good evening, everyone. We wanted to have this slide here because we wanted to do a little bit deeper of a dive into the AP coursework and look at it from a perspective of success and some opportunities for improving the success metrics for students taking and passing the AP exam. We're specifically focusing on the AP successes because, as Cindy mentioned, this represents about 2/3 of all early college enrollments. So if we can move and improve some of the data related to AP success, we'll have a large impact on a lot of students. The graph that you see on the left is taking a look at all of the areas where a student may be successful in earning the AP college credit, and some of the areas where a student may fall off and ultimately end up not being successful in earning the credit. What we are, each of the green sections represents the successful culmination in earning the AP credit, whereas the red bars represent where a student may have fallen off and ultimately not earned that credit. So last school year, not looking at individual students now, but looking at every single individual AP course enrollment, there were 4,732 individual enrollments. Of those enrollments, 4,598 of them resulted in a passing grade in the AP class. Over 97% of our students were successful in the class and earned high school credit for participating in the class. Only 134 were not successful. What you see is the kind of next segment is of those over 4,500 students and enrollments that were course passes, only 3,369 of them ultimately took the AP exam, while there were 1,200 instances where a student had passed the course but did not take the AP exam. And then finally, there were over 2,500 instances where the student took the exam and then earned the 3, 4, or 5 score on the AP exam that is required to earn the college credit, which is over a 75% pass rate on the AP exam, which is phenomenal. I want to highlight a couple of things here. So when we look at this kind of flow, we look at where students are falling off. We'll notice that the highest instance of that is in students not taking the AP exam. Now, that might happen for a variety of reasons. There might be students that are taking 4 or 5 different AP courses at once, and the student decides to focus on 1 or 2 exams to give themselves the best chance of, focusing and studying for one particular exam. And so they might not take a few others as like a strategic play. There are other students that might not take the exam because it does cost money to take the exam. The exam costs $125 if the student is not eligible for free and reduced lunch. this is all to say that we do identify that this is an area of growth, that we want to support students in building the value of earning the AP credit and ensuring that all of our students are provided the opportunity to take those AP exams. Because when they're enrolled in the course, they are successful. When they have been taking the exams, they've largely been successful. And so we want to continue seeing this growth towards students taking and earning the AP credit via the exam. I'll move on to the next slide, please. One of the things that is very easy to do when we do a presentation like this is just sort of focus on big picture district-wide data to say out of all of our 25,000 plus students, this is what is happening. But we couldn't tell this story without talking to educators that are at the school level and are working with individual students to improve the access and to improve the success of the students in these programs. And so with us tonight is Annie Hank Braga and Darcy Paquette from La Follette High School to talk about what La Follette has been doing over the last couple of years to improve AP access and success.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. I'm Annie Hank Braga. I'm one of the AVID coordinators as well as an AVID teacher.
And I'm Darcy Paquette. I'm the other AVID coordinator, and I teach AVID as well as an AP course.
So we wanted to spend a little bit of time giving you some context about our work and then providing you with some data to support the work that we've been doing and then talk about some of our next steps. So I want to talk a little bit about our why us as AVID coordinators have really taken on this work. And some of it stems from coming back from the pandemic. We were really noticing that our students needed the rigor to feel prepared for their college classes. And we had over time seen our data and we'd known that our AP classes, like our AP classes weren't representative of our student population and that students weren't taking advantage of the AP exams like Mitch mentioned. And then we'd known that from our AVID certification process, something we have to do every year, and we look at some of that data. But that combined with the pandemic and that transition back and concerns around rigor. And then really, for me personally, I was, I had a group of AVID students and I was watching them prepare. I can think of 3 specific students. They had, every tutorial day, they were working on pre-calculus. They were preparing themselves. They were excited to take for AP Calc the next year. And then I got to a scheduling meeting in the spring and I found out from our scheduling principal that we were not offering AP Calc for the first time. And I think like 30 years, our school was not offering AP Calc and these students wouldn't have the option to take a specific AP course that they needed for their math sequence and they'd really prepared for. And that was a really reflective moment of like, who is leading this work? Who is helping students prepare for these AP courses, who's helping them sign up, and what systems do we have as a school? And when Darcy and I often would talk about this, we really realized it was, there wasn't a clear system and that someone needed to do the work. And so we really took it on last year. It was often the 2 of us joined by our AVID counselor when capacity allowed. And we identified together 3 buckets of work that we wanted to really focus in on. And so we're going to talk through each of the buckets. They're recruitment, test taking, and then retention.
So I'm going to start with recruitment. I should say that we've also kind of gotten together this team of teachers, our AP teachers who help us ideate around these things. So we kind of like lead the work, but they've been, really helpful in brainstorming. So we started with recruitment last year. And in addition to we always talk about AP coursework in AVID and school-wide when we're talking to kids, we have a dedicated lesson to that. But we also as a team came up with a strategy to ask La Follette High School teachers to recommend students who might need an extra nudge to take an AP course. So not the kids who we know are automatically going to just be signing up, but kids who we know have the capacity to do really well, who we think would thrive in those classes. And we then with that list that we got from teachers, we sent notes and emails home to parents to talk about the why of AP coursework and encourage students to take that final step and put it on their schedule for the next year. And then student services actually followed up also with all of those kids to give them that extra push as well. This year, we're really talking about adding another layer of AP Fair. Again, doing the prep work of getting lists from teachers of kids that we should invite, and then doing a sort of like a lunch meeting where kids learn sort of the why of AP and then are able to go to a fair afterwards in order to learn about each of the courses and meet the teachers, maybe hear from other students. And so the work that we did last year really gave us a nice 10% jump in the percentage of students taking at least one AP course. So we went from 26.3% to 36.2%. And then in terms of course enrollments, we had 655 course enrollments in 23-24, and we jumped up to over 1,000 in 24-25. And along that, we've been looking at demographics. We pulled some recent data today that show that we've made gains to make our AP demographics more similar to our school demographics. We obviously have room to grow, but that's where we are after our efforts last year.
So the second bucket of work that we really focused on was test taking. And so I'll start by sharing some of our data, and then I'll talk about why I think we've seen that growth. So in 22-23, 80% of enrolled AP students took the test. 80% of students who were enrolled registered for the test. And in 23-24 last year, we saw 90% of students who were enrolled registered for the test. And I think the work that we did that really led to that 10% growth is we, instead of relying on AP teachers to give the messaging about like signing up and ensuring that that happened, we as a leadership team, so Darcy, myself, our Avid counselor, and some other coaches and coordinators led the AP scheduling lesson. We brought all AP classes together so that we could really control the messaging, because we do know that there are some AP teachers that give mixed messages. Like if they don't think you're going to get a 3 based on the first couple of weeks of school, they're not going to encourage you to sign up for the test. And we wanted to make sure that all students understood the benefits of taking a test, regardless if they score a 3 or above. And so we saw that 10% growth. But then, as Mitch mentioned, we've also know that students register and then they don't show up for the test. And in fact, in 23-24, almost 30% of students who registered for the test didn't show up for the test that they registered for. So we shared that data with students and with families. We emailed all families and said, look, this is the reality. Students register and they don't show up. Please partner with us to make sure that students got there. And then we also added, it took a lot of work, but we took our whole list of all the students who registered. We shared that with our staff, and we asked each staff to pick one student and sign up for them and write them an individual note of encouragement. And then we stapled that on. Darcy and I stuffed these baggies full of granola bars and pencils and information, and they got that bag the week leading up to testing. And we did see really positive feedback from both students and teachers. And I think it was just like an encouragement and recognition that they're going to be stepping into this challenging experience, and we see them, we're proud of them. It doesn't matter if they pass or not. Obviously, we want them to pass, but we just want them to have this rigorous experience. And so we went from 72% of registered students who took the test in 22-23 to 81%. So almost 10% growth, and 15% for our Avid students specifically. And overall, with both of those buckets of works, we went from 60% of AP enrollment. So if you think of that whole like graph on that last page or last slide, 60% in 22-23 to 73%.
Our last bucket of work is the one that's maybe the most complex. Those first two are kind of technical, and we were able to think of some systems to really help us see some growth. But the last bucket is retention. And so this is an area that we really are trying to focus on this year. We don't have comparative data for this necessarily, but we do know that in August, we had 1,005-ish enrollments in AP courses, and in October, we were down to 963. So we already are seeing some kids, for whatever reason, dropping their AP courses early in the year. And so we know that we, are able to get the kids signed up. And when we get the kids signed up and they stay, we can get them to more of them to take the test. But we want to make sure that we're supporting them and holding on to them throughout the school year. So this year, we're really focusing on that. we have implemented as a first step a study hall that's happening during lunch, where AP teachers staff it, and students can come in. We've incentivized with some raffles and things like that for attendance. It's not exactly our ideal. We had started the year thinking that or last year when we were thinking about this, we had hoped to get more of like a special, like a time in the day, either through like a flex schedule or some sort of study hall or something in order to support students. But that didn't happen. So we're working on this lunch idea instead. So far we have, just a few kids each day. But that's what we're working on for right now. So we do know that this is more complex, more adaptive, and we're trying to figure out how to approach that retention piece throughout the year.
Yeah, so you can see that kind of on the slide here, just bringing you back to this data, we are seeing our data look more and more like our La Follette School as a whole, which has kind of been one of our driving goals. And then we are seeing success again with students showing up to the test and passing the test. So close to 50% of students who took the test earned some college credit. And again, we know that there are benefits even if you're not scoring that 3. So we'll just leave you with a final recommendation. Kind of started sharing our why as AVID coordinators, why we were taking on this work. And we've, I think, identified some really successful strategies and put in some place some beginnings to systems. And we have seen the growth, and it's exciting, but it also has taken a lot of hard work, and we want to make sure to sustain this momentum. And as we're recruiting more students into the courses, we know that retention is even more key. So we just kind of recommend that we continue to work both as a school and school district to identify who is leading the work, and so that it doesn't kind of fall on the shoulders of a couple of school staff. Yes, thank you.
Thank you both so much. We know that we will pause after a few more slides for some questions. So I'm sure the Board of Education may have questions for both of you. Jesse, could you go to the next slide, please? I'm going to turn it back over to Mitch. We're going to talk about a few more slides, and then we will make a pause before we have a spotlight for one of our students.
Thank you, Cindy. When we talk about early college, I think it's very easy to be focused only on the rigor of the courses, the confidence that students are building by taking these courses, the value in having students challenge themselves, all of which are terrific, value adds to participating in early college. But we don't want to lose sight that there is a tangible value to the students in participating and being successful in these courses as well. Tangible value that can change the value proposition of the next couple of years of their life and put real money back into their pockets. And so what we are showing on this slide is a summary of the 23-24 school year and the amount of credits, the amount of college credits that students taking early college earned last school year, and the value in dollars of tuition saved, future tuition saved by earning those college credits free of charge while an MMSD high school student. So you'll notice almost $3 million has been saved by students taking and passing the AP exams, which accounts for almost 8,000 individual college credits. Dual transcripted credit is a smaller program, but still represents over $500,000 in tuition savings. And dual enrollment, our students in the Early College STEM Academy, Start College Now, and ECCP, the Early College Credit Program, have earned almost 6,000 college credits, representing a tuition savings of about $2.2 million. So in total, about $6 million has been saved in future tuition by students taking early college credit. If you, on the right-hand side, you see just a couple other statistics. The students participating in early college on average are leaving with about 16 college credits, which is more than a semester worth of college. And I also want to highlight that students that receive a free and reduced lunch have also represented over $1.4 million in future tuition savings. So I think it's important to recognize that there is very tangible benefit to our students in participating in these programs. I will move on to the next slide. It wouldn't be fair to talk about advanced coursework and only focus on early college credit programming. We know that there are a variety of other opportunities that students can participate in that will equally accelerate them towards the post-secondary futures that they have planned for themselves. And one such opportunity is the collection of programming that we refer to as work-based learning. So students being connected with businesses and industries and getting outside of the school to participate in authentic learning in an industry environment. We have over 50 employers that are 50 business partners and industry partners that are employing our students across all of the 16 identified industry sectors. Last school year, we had 157 students earn work-based learning credit, and the wages that they earned, on average, they're earning about $14 an hour. Students had earned 175 credits via work-based learning and almost $500,000 in wages. Over the summer, we had 256 summer internships. We had a few more throughout the school year, which represented over $400,000 in wages earned and another 170 credits attained. And then we also had 33 students successfully complete a registered youth apprenticeship program, which had them working for over 450 hours and combined those hours worked with college credit. And those students collectively earned over $100,000 in wages for participating. In addition to that being money that they could be saving, we also want to recognize that a number of students are wage earners within their household. And so not only is this a valuable learning opportunity, but it is also contributing to their families in a very tangible way. Much like bringing in La Follette High School, bringing in Annie and Darcy to talk about the great work that's happening at La Follette, we didn't think that we could accurately discuss the work-based learning opportunity ourselves just from a district perspective, because it is a highly personalized opportunity. These opportunities are connected with students' post-secondary plans. They're connected with how students are selecting courses that they take back at their home high schools. And so we wanted to invite one of our students that had participated in a summer internship to discuss a little bit about what that experience was like and what it means for his post-secondary future. Go to the next slide. Mr. Lamine Traor is an East High School junior. And I think that Lamine represents just a fascinating, wonderful student that has been a participant in so many interesting opportunities. And I think kind of represents a student that has taken advantage of opportunities that span both this major presentation and the minor presentation with the co-curriculars that you'll see in just a minute. But Lamine has been asked to talk a little bit about his summer internship through the ARISE program and working with the Carbone Cancer Center. Lamine, I will turn the stage over to you.
Hey, my name is Lamine, like Mitch said. I'm here to talk about my ARISE internship, which I did over the summer at UW. It was a great experience, and I learned about the internship from a teacher that goes to East, Emma Watermelon, and that experience has really shaped what I want to do in college. So I was undecisive going into that internship, and now I want to do research in the health field, and that experience really shaped what I want to do in secondary school.
Lamine, can you talk a little bit about what the internship was?
So the internship was, you were combined with the science lab at UW, a cancer research lab at UW, and you were assigned to like a different department. So I was assigned to the genetics department, and you would work on whatever the lab needed. So I ended up working on pedigrees, for my internship. You present at the end, and every week there are 2 labs that are combined with every student. So once we had like a work-life balance kind of lab where we talked about how we could achieve a better work-life balance. We had a lab where um we went and touched some human organs and learned about them. And there was another lab where we went to what's it called? Oh my god. Okay. And at the end we just presented about the research that we did during the summer.
Why did you look to do an internship this past summer? What was kind of the reason for you kind of pursuing that opportunity?
So I was between the social studies and science department, what I wanted to do really. So I learned about the internship and I was like, oh, if I do this internship and I don't like what I'm doing at UW, maybe I should focus more on social studies as I go into my junior year. So then I did the internship and it was great. So now I'm in AP Bio. Um, I'm gonna do AP Bio and next year do dual credit at UW and then continue my biology degree at UW hopefully. It kind of helped me build the road that I can see right now.
Wow. Lamine, you are a perfect example of a well-rounded student based on what we see on this slide. Board Chair Muldrow, I'm wondering if we could pause at this point in case the board has specific questions for Lamine in terms of his experiences or anything he shared. And then we can finish the presentation with the staff if that works for you.
I think that that would be absolutely wonderful. And I think really giving us a chance to kind of highlight your experience and also show so much appreciation, Lamine, for you joining us here this evening. Lamine, I guess I want to just start by asking what was kind of your favorite part of getting to be in this internship program? Like what made it meaningful and enjoyable to you?
It was definitely like the lab experience. Like I love hands-on work. Like that's how I mostly learn. So instead of just being in the classroom and just like going through slides, it was helpful to just like be a great part of a already established lab. So my pedigrees might be used in a paper later on that they're working on thrombocytopenia. So that was really meaningful that I actually did a part and helped this lab in doing their work.
Thank you so much for your response to my question. I don't think we could be like prouder of you or more excited to have you here tonight. I'm really looking forward to what other board members are hoping to hear from you. Board Member Vandermeulen, I see your hand, and then I think I'm just going to go around and make sure we hear from all of our board members. We get to
Is this just my
value
question?
you here. Yes,
Is this
absolutely.
questions for Lamine or all of my questions?
We're gonna be specific because we want to honor that our young person is here with us briefly, and then it's a school night. Let him study and get to bed and be an adolescent person.
I figured I just want to say good job. I don't have any specific questions. I just have questions on the presentation.
All right, thank you so much. Board President Nichols, do you have questions for the young person who's joining us tonight for Lamine?
Yeah, sure. Hey, Lamine, thank you so much for sharing a bit about your experience. One of the things I'm curious about is on the slide they have up for you, it shows you being enrolled in AP African American Studies, AP Bio, AP English Language and Composition, AP French Language. How are you, as a student, finding yourself balancing being in that many AP courses and still doing other activities that you enjoy?
So
Good.
to do this, I kind of have to stretch myself a little bit. So it's about like valuing what's important sometimes. So I know I want to have a well-rounded high school experience. I know I want to have a nice resume, high school resume. So I wanted an AP class for each core subject. So last year I wasn't able to do AP classes. So this year I just did as many as I could so that next year I could focus more on what I want to do in college and pick specific classes for those. And um, that's really why I picked so many AP classes. But we'll see how this year goes. I mean, it just started, so
Well, I appreciate hearing your motivation. Sounds like you have a little bit of a strategy that you're playing out as well about what's going to get you best positioned. And I love hearing how your internship also helped you get some inside views of what the more of the science route or path could look for you. So I'm so glad you had that experience and that you took the time to do that. Thank you.
Board Vice President Pearson.
Hey, Lamine, thank you for sharing your experience so far. I'm looking forward to the next couple years of what you can achieve. I guess my only question for you is just I'm just curious, how did you get, I guess, informed about some of these opportunities? How did you learn about them? What things did you do to kind of like put yourself out there to learn about them? So maybe if we have students who are listening, and or parents who are listening, maybe that may help them also figure out some routes for their children as well.
so I would say like for getting these like internship opportunities, I would say like talking to your teachers is great. Like they mostly know what's going on. So that's how I learned about the Rise internship. And I'm also in Upper Bound, which shows me a lot of information about internship that are going on, dual credit, everything. So you really have to keep in touch with that. And I would say like just mostly talk to your teachers. Like they're a reliable way to get internships and what's it called? Dual credit, stuff like that. I would also say like don't just be open to anything. Like don't just be like, "Oh, I want to do this and I'm already set on it." You never know how an internship could change your mind about what you want to do.
Yeah, thank you for that. As a mom of a freshman, I'm constantly trying to get her to be a part of things. But also, too, how did you learn about Upward Bound?
Upper Bound. So my cousin is in Upper Bound, so I already knew about Upper Bound coming in, and I learned about Upper Bound from a couple of my teachers. They told me later on, so they helped me sign up, and now I'm in the program.
Well, kudos to you, kudos to your teachers, and kudos to your family. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your questions, Vice President Pearson. Board Member Mosner Faltham.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Great.
I can. And I see your hand, Board Member Castro, so you are on deck.
My question for you, Lamine, is can you tell me a little bit about your experiences in 9th and 10th grade before you were able to take these advanced courses, and what in your 9th and 10th grade courses you feel like prepared you for this, and where you feel like you weren't really adequately prepared because of the courses you took in 9th and 10th grade?
So my freshman year was kind of weird because I had half a freshman year here. I went to one city before here, so kind of like it's a really different system that they have there. It's not like a letter grade. They don't really have AP classes. So coming here, I was kind of like, okay, let me try to do the most I can, just like get a base. So that's when I was involved in BSU, French club, African club, and that's when I got into tennis. And then my sophomore year, I was like, keep continuing these things you're already doing, but just like watch out for anything that might come up that could like set you on to what you want to do in junior year. Because my parents were like, I mean, you really have to choose before junior year, which I get. They didn't do high school here. So that was, I told them I had time, but they didn't get that. So I really felt kind of rushed. And I was like, okay, now I could add a little bit, a couple more clubs. So I added pickleball club for fun. Um, and then I joined Upper Bound. And my classes, some of them were easy. Like I did geometry, and I did the mistake to try AP Precog this year. Didn't work out. So I was kind of like looking. I didn't get to pick my schedule first of all, because coming from one city, there was like a problem in up what's it called, Infinite Campus. So I couldn't really pick my classes. I switched some around, but I kept most of my classes. And then I was looking onto junior year to see what classes I could move into. So I tried every core subject to get an AP class in. AP Precog did not work. And I was looking around because I still want this to be fun. So I picked a couple classes that I think I would be interested in, like guitar, ceramics, weightlifting. So this is how I got started on. And then by the end of sophomore year, I learned about Arise. And then now that helped me set like a clear path.
Thanks. I appreciate all your insights. Look forward to hearing where you go next. Thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you.
Board Member Castro?
Hello, thank you so much for spending your evening with us and sharing time with us tonight. I have one question for you based off some of the experiences you've shared. You mentioned that you kind of I forget how you put it, but you kind of thinned yourself out or stretched yourself thin with the number of engagements that you had. You were very involved with your academics and with clubs and athletics. I'm wondering what strategies or routines or techniques helped you with your mental health? Are there other ways that the district schools can support your mental health with the level of involvement that you have?
For my mental health, sophomore year, freshman year, I wasn't really thinking about it. I was just like, do what's on your Infinite Campus. Try to get the best grades possible. Like anything else does not matter. And then by the end of sophomore year, I was really like stressed out. And there's like a survey that we do about mental health. And then that pulled me into the attention of our counselors, and that kind of helped me. So now I'm more like, you can thin yourself out, but don't put too much on yourself. Like if you already have these hard classes, don't join every club that comes and asks you. Like really pick and choose and be decisive, because you still want this to be fun and kind of hard, but you don't want to always be stressed and always be tired all the time. So like now I I have like a clear schedule of what I'm doing this week, just so it's now more random and I'm less stressed. And like it's really more planning than just doing random stuff now, because I kind of know what I want to do.
Thank you so much, and always remember to just put that, put that first.
Board Member Simkin, do you have any questions for Lamine?
So all of my questions were asked, so thank you, fellow board members. And Lamine, I just want to share some appreciation for you taking time to talk to us tonight. And for sharing the thoughtfulness in which you have planned out your time and your energy. And then adding to that, like really thinking now about how to provide a good balance for yourself as well. The term that's been coming to mind as I've been listening to you describe what you've been doing and all of your different interests are like Renaissance man. This idea of just being interested in kind of everything that comes your way. And I just really appreciate that you're taking advantage of opportunities and now starting to do those, take advantage of the ones that are absolutely the most interesting to you. So I also hope that we get to hear again about what happens over the next year and a half, because this has been wonderful to hear about you tonight. So thank you.
Lamine, before we let you go, I just want to thank you again for joining us this evening. I think, it was a real gift to our Board of Education and our community to get to hear you talk about what these opportunities have meant to you and how you've navigated them and become aware of them. Thank you for highlighting the kind of learner you are and talking about a hands-on learning experience being valuable as opposed to a more sit and get or lecture style delivery of education. It was really, really a gift to us and an honor to get to hear from you this evening. And we all know that you're going to do great things. Your future is looking tremendously bright. And we're so glad that you are one of our young people here at MMSD. So, and also I have a kiddo who is a freshman at East High School. So I'm gonna tell her she's got somebody at school to look up to for sure. We're gonna jump back into our presentation this evening. We have a couple more slides before we're gonna get to discussion and questions. So thank you so much for joining, Lamine, and I turn it back over to Cindy Green.
Thank you. And Lamine, thank you. I just wanted to say I really appreciate your experiences have helped you figure out what you're not interested in and what you are interested in. That was just beautiful to hear. We really appreciate you. Feel free to hang out and listen to the rest of the presentation, but I just wanted to make sure we honor your voice tonight and for you sharing your experience. Jesse, could you pull the slides back up? I'm going to turn it back over to Mitch, but I think the next couple of slides are going to really show how we're trying to think about opportunities in every way for students that are not just one way of thinking, but that are creating opportunities for students to lead to what they're interested in post-secondary. So Mitch, back to you.
Thank you, Cindy. The thing that resonates with me about Lamine's story is this idea of building a path, right? Building a path, finding out what your interest might be, and then starting to accelerate towards that post-secondary future. And as we talk about advanced coursework, that story of building a pathway and accelerating towards a future couldn't be complete without talking about the opportunities that are available through the career and technical education programming. And I want to specifically highlight just the opportunity that is been provided to the district as part of the last couple of years of investment via the referendum. A lot of money went to ensuring that the career and technical education laboratories are up to industry standard, so that the programs that we're building are not just wonderful high school programs, but they're truly programs that are going to be preparing students to be competitive for high wage, high skill, and in demand careers. You'll see at the top left there, I've highlighted that the living wage The amount of money that one needs to make per hour to live comfortably in Dane County is over $21 an hour. And so by intentionally offering kind of like entry-level positions that are attainable by earning certifications through MMSD CTE programs, we can ensure that our students are having a strong start to their post-secondary life if they are interested in pursuing one of the careers that CTE programs are directed towards. On the right-hand side, I'm highlighting the certifications that the industries in Dane County and in the state of Wisconsin value, kind of like above and beyond, or just kind of like value as an entry point into their industry. And then the middle column represents the number of enrollments that we have in courses that confer those certifications this year. And then on the right-hand side is based on the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the starting wage of an individual in Dane County that has attained that certification. I know there's a lot of industry jargon on this, so very quickly, I just want to highlight what some of these are. Through our automotive programs, we are now able to offer the ASE Certified Tech certification. ASE is the industry standard for becoming a mechanic. And so through our automotive programs, we are intentional about ensuring that students can be accelerated towards being a licensed mechanic. Certiport Software Development is a software development certification in our IT and STEM programs. The nursing assistant program is offered at each of our comprehensive high schools. This year is the first year that we're offering a new certification in construction. So our woods programs are beginning the transition from fine woodworking into construction as a more competitive area of working with wood and construction. And so those certifications will be offered across the district. Phlebotomy lab tech is being built into the East High School. Project Lead the Way for all of our future engineers. That's actually a version of early college credit that students can earn in our engineering programs. By passing an end of course exam, students are earning college credit through Project Lead the Way. And then the final two are food-related certifications that are needed to work in the hospitality and culinary industry. The food handlers offered to every single student that takes a culinary program allows them to work in the kitchen. It's a necessity. And then for the advanced students that are going through our culinary 3 and 4, students will now be participating in the food manager certification, which allows them to oversee a wide range of responsibilities within a professional kitchen. And so kind of like as a period, kind of like an end note on this slide, I just want to highlight that because of intentional investment in these labs that now meet industry standard, we are able to offer certifications that, again, will confer tangible benefit to the students that are participating in these programs. And we're excited to see the next several years of growth, innovation, and success of our students within these programs.
Jesse, could you go to the next slide, please? And so Langston, our Director of College and Career Readiness, is here, and he's going to talk about some areas that we know are still where we need to improve and kind of talk about our next steps. So I'll turn it over to Langston.
Good evening. We definitely want to build on what we heard tonight, the promising practices and promising outcomes for our students and students like Lamine. But we also want to make sure that we have all of our students that have access to experiences that provide them opportunities to accelerate them to success beyond high school. And so we know that's going to take continuous improvement and targeted next steps. And for that, when we've looked at what we've talked about tonight, one way to frame that is to think about the question of how do we empower our students to know how prepared they are for success in their career and life after high school. And to do that, we have expanded the conversation tonight beyond traditional measures of tests, grades, and graduation rates, because we know that in order for students to be prepared for success, they need to have other experiences. And so we've included the economic, academic, and career benefits that students can actually get in our MMSD courses, and thinking about the tangible impacts that will have on their very near futures. And so what we want to do is really think about how we increase not only the opportunities that students have, but the equitable access that students have. And that brings us to our outcomes and our next steps. I want to note that when we think about the creation of these universal and targeted next steps, this included not only the data that you saw here tonight, the conversations that we've had with our school staff, like our amazing La Follette team, but also intentional and important student feedback has really driven us to come up with these next steps. And so just to sort of focus on the universal next steps, we know it is absolutely critical for us to build a coherent and robust district-wide approach to increase the number of high quality opportunities that students have to accelerate and explore their career interests. And then we also know it's important that all students have access to it. So equitable access for these opportunities are equally as critical as increasing the number of opportunities. And so by doing that, that means, yes, we have to really think intentionally about the communication that we are having with our scholars, but not only with our scholars, but with our staff who act as guides and navigators, and with our families and our community about these opportunities. It means specifically that we do want to increase our dual transcripted courses that our students have access to in our high schools, but also increase the course taking and AP test taking that we have in our high schools, as well as La Follette has shown us some very critical strategies as well with that. In terms of some of the targeted steps that we know are strategic that are important as we move forward with this work, building early awareness, starting with our middle schools and building into the fabric of our education that these experiences, these accelerating experiences, whether they be advanced coursework or certification or internship or careers, are absolutely critical to developing success. And so starting with 6th grade and letting students know what is possible, what is actually able to be done in middle school, and getting them prepared for these opportunities. It's all of our staff, it's all of our teachers who are involved in creating this message, this culture where this is the way we do school in MMSD. We also want to leverage our former students and our current students to be mentors and navigators. They know what the real is, and they're the ones who have taken these opportunities and turned them into their success. And really can speak that language of the tangible benefits. You're putting money in your pocket. You're saving time in your next step, whether it be college or career. And then we want to continue to learn from the great work that's been done at La Follette High School. As I mentioned, by the efforts and ingenuity of a few staff, we have learned some great insights. And so what we want to do is not only build and deepen the work that they're doing there, but systematize that work so it doesn't fall solely on the head of a few individuals, and that we have the support both within the school and within the district to not only continue the work that they're doing at La Follette, but also expand that work to our other schools. And finally, we want to continue to leverage our apprenticeship with our UW Madison scholar, who is working with us to review our college readiness and preparation data, so that we continue to understand what are the markers and indicators of ongoing success. As a note, I do want to bring up a memo to the board for advanced coursework that was from November of 2023, where we had indicated that policy work might be the leading edge of how we continue to improve access to this work. And what we have found out through this year, listening to La Follette, really diving into the data that Mitch and others were walking us through tonight, is that we actually believe right now that our way forward, our way to improve access and opportunity for our students is by continuing to improve our processes and our systems within MMSD. That while policy work might still be out there, that actually the way forward is really focusing on our universal and targeted next steps.
Thank you so much, Langston. Board Chair Muldrow, I'll just say a couple words and then I will turn it back to you. I hope through the presentation tonight, you can see how we are thinking about the system-wide strategies that we believe are going to continue to improve our outcomes for our students, and the investments that the Board of Education have made are having impact on our students, both monetarily as well as academically, both through the approval of the referendum 2020 and some of the other approvals that the Board of Education has made, such as approval for spending for early college and other opportunities. So with that, Jesse, could you take us off of screen share, and I will turn it back over to Board Chair Muldrow. And let me pause. Dr. Gothard, is there anything you wanted to say before I turn it back over to Board Chair Muldrow?
No, thank you, Cindy, and thank you everyone for contributing tonight. Just really exciting conversations, and I'm excited to hear what the board has to say, and questions and comments that you all might have that can help us really deepen our work that we embrace with our entire community. Thank you.
All right, Board Member Vandermeulen, I see you first, and then any board members who have questions, please raise your hand digitally and keep it up so that I can flip back and forth and see you all.
I have about 5 or 6 of them, Chair. I noticed La Follette, which has one of our largest deaf populations, yet in the data, they didn't show the number of individuals with IEPs taking those classes just district-wide, but not La Follette-wide. Was that just not included? I'm confused on that.
Yes, I can definitely start, Board Member Vandermeulen. It was not intentional. I think.
No, I don't think it was.
Yeah. Yeah, when we were sharing the data, I don't have that on hand. I will see if Annie or Darcy do. If not, we're happy to make sure the same demographic breakdown that we gave in the other slides is provided to the board.
Perfect.
I don't know
That's
if Annie
really helpful.
Yeah, Annie or Darcy, I don't know if you know that offhand. Yeah, they don't. Okay, we'll make sure. Thank you.
No problem. I appreciate that. The other thing that I do worry, I'm thrilled that individuals with disabilities are taking more work options. In fact, that they show that individuals with disabilities who have 2 paid work experiences are 80% less likely to serve in a shelter workshop and more likely to be a competitive employee. So I'm incredibly proud of that. I am a little worried on the advanced placement for one reason, and that is it can take up to a year to get permission for accommodations for those exams. Do we have someone that will help our students with the paperwork on that? Because I can tell you I had a heck of a time, and that was 20 years ago doing it. I can't imagine. I hope it's gotten easier, but you had to fight to get even a separate room. So
Yeah.
I worry.
Yes, so I will just tell you, it is easier than 20. I don't know what it was 20 years ago, but it is easier. And we do have a team that supports that both at the school level. There is a point of contact that ensures that they identify students that need accommodations. And then we also have a team centrally. And then a reminder, we are over at the Alliant Energy Center when we take those exams, and there's special separate rooms if needed, spaces, etc. So yes, that is definitely an area of support that is provided.
And I have 2 more questions, Sharon, and then I'll be done. On the for the grades, have we looked into weighted formula? I know I get a lot of emails on whether or not that's good, bad. I don't have an opinion personally. For once, I actually don't have one. So I'm just curious whether that's been considered.
Yes. So in short, we have started discussions. We have not made any decisions about it. Langston and his team have been looking into that. I don't know where we will go as a district around weighted grades, but it has come up most recently due to some new state statutes that have been put in place.
And do you know if the board would get to vote on that or not? I don't know.
I do not know. I don't know that we're even close to having
I
a
figured.
recommendation at this point.
And my last question is, I'm thrilled that we have teachers available for students, but if they work during their lunch, are they paid like extra to do that or overtime, or do they still get the 30 minutes lunch at a different period of time? Teachers.
So I'm going to let Annie and Darcy answer that because they probably know more specifically. I think it's a half hour that teachers provide targeted support, but I'll let our teachers provide that response.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, we had also asked about that as well when we came up with this idea, but there wasn't any payment available for lunchtime. So right now they are volunteering. They go up for about 45 minutes. They're eating in there, but yeah, it's not compensated.
Can we look into compensating that as a possibility, considering if we really want to make it accessible for all students, it's got to be a hardship on some teacher. Just saying. I know it's a tight budget, but something I think we need to get in mind. But I appreciate, thank you guys so much for everything. It was an excellent presentation. It was really well done. What I really like is I'm hearing from both teachers and students, which is really hopeful. So I appreciate that. Talk to you later. Thank you. And now I gotta lower my hand.
Board Member Vandermeulen, do you mind muting? Thank you so much. Board Member Mosner-Feltnam, and then Megan, you're on deck.
Thank you. You can still hear me okay? Great. I'm not using this mic. I'm using a whatever, doesn't matter. Thank you for the beautiful presentation. I have a few questions. The first is, one of the things that really jumped out at me hearing Lamine from East talk is that he was enrolled in involved with 3 separate additional programs, right? Upward Bound and Arise, and I think he mentioned one other. So if maybe it's just 2. And then we heard from folks about students who are in Avid and what their Avid coordinators and Avid teachers are doing. Another additional support for students. All of which are excellent. And I am aware of the efforts towards school-wide Avid implementation, but that's different than an Avid elective or Upward Bound tutoring or a summer program through Arise that is fully funded and is beyond sort of what I think we have capacity to offer at the universal level or what we're planning to offer at the universal level. So I think my question is when we know that what students are seeking to be doing this is a really personalized touch and that 1-to-1 or 1-to-4 tutoring, academic support, academic and career planning support, how do we bridge that gap? Because it is not, as far as I understand, possible for us at this time to be offering that type of support universally. So that's my first sort of question. And I don't expect anybody in this call to be able to answer that on the fly, but that's what's coming up for me. So I guess that's not a question, just sort of for people to know where my head's at with that. My actual questions are, do we know anything about how undocumented students are accessing this, about what's available for them, whether or not they have paperwork? My second question is about how this work dovetails with any of the earned honors work at the 9th and 10th grade level. And then my last question is, I guess, probably for Cindy, sort of how to be successful in an AP class or in a college level class, you need a certain set of foundational skills, which we're learning from our test scores are not necessarily, not all students are getting that learning that they need. And so I'm wondering, what has the conversation been like about ensuring that middle school and 9th and 10th grade courses are rigorous and accessible for all students to be able to take that step at 11th and 12th grade? So those three questions. One is about undocumented students. The second one is about how this works with honors at the 9th and 10th grade level, and sort of what's happening to make sure that students are gaining those skills in the 9th and 10th grade classes. that lets them be successful at those 11th and 12th grade college level classes?
Sure. Thank you for your questions, Board Member Feltham. Langston, do you want to start to talk about some of the work with undocumented students? And then we can go on to the other questions also.
Yeah, specifically, so there's sort of two sides of that equation. One, we aren't obviously publicly tracking or asking about students' documentation status for access to programs. But one of the things that we are very intentional about when we are working in any of our advising programs is having the programs let our students and families know what documentation status, immigration status is available for those programs. And so ensuring that there's a clear window of understanding of what is required for it. And then we will work with students to ensure they have the resources necessary to take advantage of those opportunities. And so there's sort of anecdotal data. Obviously, there's no, in terms of tracked data, but we know of students that have a variety of immigration statuses that are able to take advantage of our opportunities in terms of both early college and career.
Well, that makes sense. Thanks for that.
The second question you had was around 9th and 10th grade honors and earned honors. Is that correct? So I will start, and then I think our La Follette staff and teachers might also want to chime in here. I think it's always great to hear directly from our teachers. In general, most of our coursework at 9th and 10th grade, as you know, the reason we moved towards an earned honors approach as well as keeping our standalone honors was we felt that was like the launch pad for students to be able to then engage in advanced coursework, specifically AP and early college. And so we're continuing to focus on rigorous coursework at 9th and 10th grade, standards aligned, where students can earn honors in all of those core areas, English, math, science, social studies, to prepare them for AP courses. I think it's also important to note some of what Mitch talked about is we've really tried to think differently about the sequencing of our CTE coursework so that students are able to go through level 1, 2, 3, 4 so that they can actually earn those industry credentials. They can actually earn that college credit that a lot of those dual transcripted courses offer as well. That's work. It was about 13 different course strands that he and his team have worked really hard on, and it's still in progress where some of that shift has happened. But I think that's another way that we've been really thinking about that. Annie or Darcy, is there anything you would want to add around that question specific to the how we're preparing students in 9th and 10th grade?
I think that actually voices some concerns that we do have. We want to make sure students are ready for this next step. And we do question like the rigor available at all levels. And that's part of the reason also that we're pushing AP classes, because we know that's a touch point where they're gonna experience rigorous challenge. That being said, we're doing a lot of work around like messaging who is an AP student and that anyone can be an AP student. And so even if test scores aren't showing you're at a certain level, that doesn't mean that you can't take the academic risk and that we will have supports available for you. I think we also voiced that retention piece is the most challenging thing to work because it's not just you can put in place a little technical system. But I think, we've talked about how do we increase professional development for our AP teachers so that they can make sure that there's appropriate scaffolds in place. And then Darcy mentioned the AP fair and making sure that students are really clear about the challenge they're taking on and that they're mindful about the classes they're selecting. Not everyone has to be a Lamine and take like 5 different AP courses, but can they find an AP course where they feel like they'll be most successful? And messaging that success doesn't have to look like an A or B, right? In an AP course, you're still getting a valuable learning experience. But just circling back, that is a question of like, how do we make sure that we're upping the rigor in our 9th and 10th grade classes so that students are successful in AP and not.
Do students have the option of taking an AP class pass fail? Is that something that's ever offered for students? Because I'm thinking like, okay, not everybody has to have an A or a B in an AP class, but students are concerned about GPA for real reasons. Not reasons I love, but real reasons. And I'm wondering if that's available for students in any cases.
So we have a process for a student if they need to do a class pass fail. It's extenuating circumstances. They work through their school counselor and usually their teacher and their supervising principal for that. So there is a process for that. It isn't something that I think is widely used or used specific for students that may be taking an AP course, but it is something that is available in our high schools.
But not typically for this.
Correct.
If I can add to that, we're also trying to message really clearly that GPA isn't everything. Obviously, that's becoming harder with things like Wisconsin Guarantee and other things that are putting a lot of emphasis on GPA, but really educating like within our AVID classes and then in other avenues in our ACP curriculum school-wide that, you know, adding that challenge and that colleges and other people look at your transcript and look at the courses you're in, and that counts just as much as your GPA. So really trying to raise awareness both with students and families. We had an open house for families and we really tried to emphasize that point that it's okay if your student gets their first B or C. You know, we want them to persist and stay with the course.
Thank you for that. I think the only other thing I would add is we're continuing to try and build our relationships with many post-secondary institutions, not just locally, but across the country, because there are different requirements based on our institution. So I think that's really important. And if it's college, early college in terms of the dual credit or the dual enrollment, those do require a certain grade that you pass based on, because they're college credit and it's based on the institution that you take those courses at. So it does vary a little, which is why the idea that Langston said around continuing to build the information for our students, our families, and our staff are really important. And your last question was more kind of globally around what are we doing in general to ensure more students are.
Yeah, it was sort of just like what processes are currently in place to sort of like assess the appropriate grade level rigor broadly. You know, AP, the College Board has its own sort of like process by which it says these are the standards, this is the level of rigor that we're looking for. And I'm curious, just like sort of what's the brief status on that type of thinking?
Yeah, so for high school specifically, a reminder that our high schools have been engaging for the last year around standards-based learning and standards-based assessment. And every one of our courses at high school has standards that they align to Wisconsin state standards. Most of those are aligned to the Common Core standards or the C3 standards, and social studies, CTE has them. So I would say in short, continuing to work on standards aligned instruction and to continue to focus on staff really understanding the standards for their content area and thinking about what those tasks are and those assessments that they are providing daily to students aligned to those standards.
I really appreciate all the info. The presentation was beautiful. Thanks especially to Christy and Anne for your work directly with students on this. That's the real stuff. Not that everybody else's stuff isn't the real stuff, but like thanks for all that work and thanks for all the info. I appreciate tonight's learning a lot.
I see Megan and then Board President Nichols and then Board Member Sadie and Castro.
Okay, I have a couple things, so I'm going to try to be pretty quick. But first, adding on to Board Member Vandermeulen's point about accommodations, last year I actually did need accommodations, and we found out that that was going to be a thing like 2 weeks ahead of the first test, and College Board sent us the wrong forms, and then they didn't notify MMSD that I needed accommodations. So I showed up the day of my first exam, and MMSD just didn't know that I had been approved. So like special shout out to like Sarah Woolner and Tim Peterson and Joel Porter, who like all worked and like acted as a scribe for me, and were able to find like a bilingual scribe for a Spanish AP exam like literally the next day, which is insane, and they're absolutely amazing. So yeah, I would also really like to highlight within the career and technical education kind of department, the importance of like career and technical like student organizations, which I know you may talk about a little bit with co-curriculars, but HOSA and DECA and FBLA and Skills USA, those are all really, really important when students are also starting to explore career paths in a certain you know, industry. And those organizations can also offer certifications and opportunities that sometimes school districts can't. So highlighting that, I would also really like to just touch really quickly. I've seen in the past couple of years that MMSD has offered a lot of brand new AP exams, and that is amazing. And AP exams offer so many opportunities for students, as we've talked about today. But I also want to highlight that every time like an AP exam is added, another course is taken away that like isn't an AP exam. And sometimes like while the AP courses are supposed to be rigorous, like you do not get the in-depth discussion, like you do not get a lot of the things that you would get in a regular like classroom, just because of the timing of that type of like thing. I took AP world history a little while ago, and I remember we had like one lecture day on World War I, just because like we did not have enough time and it was so crammed, and like that's a really important point, and it wasn't the teacher's fault. It was just like there was too much to learn. Also highlighting that like AP exams, like in order to score well, you need to use a very specific type of writing that like isn't necessarily deemed like good writing. For an English class, it's like there are no transitions. It's like very structured in the way that you need to do it. So I know that AP exams offer a lot of opportunities, but I would also caution against just like replacing almost everything with AP exams, just because they're great, but they also take away from a regular learning environment. Kind of like on that, two questions. So one, like College Board seems to always be coming up with new AP exams. And I guess like my question is, as a district, does MMSD have a point where it's like, okay, we are offering too many, we're gonna like take a minute and stop, and like we're gonna replace an AP exam with a different one, like if we need to, but like is there a point where there's like a barrier there? And then my second question is like, for example, AP Physics 1 and AP Physics 2, let's say a student takes them both, is that student able to get college credit for both AP Physics 1 and AP Physics 2, or just AP Physics 2, because that was the more advanced one that they took? So, yeah.
Thank you for all of your comments, Megan, and for your questions. So the first question around AP courses, we have a process in place that we use across all of our high schools around, it's called a course proposal process. And so we look at that on a regular basis, both in terms of thinking about where we would add courses based on both voice and choice from students, as well as what we're hearing from our staff, or courses that we believe centrally need to be added across all of them. and where we also would do more reduction. So there's a really comprehensive process in place for that. So the short answer would be yes, we would really take that into consideration. Not every AP course needs to be on our books. It goes based on our course sequencing as well as where we are around the opportunities for our students. The second one around AP 1 and AP 2 for physics is any AP course is eligible for college credit if the student earns a 3 or higher. It doesn't matter if it also is stacked in terms of the advanced courses. What is different about AP courses than the college credit bearing, such as the early college, is institutions make their decisions on which courses they will accept for college credit versus just elective credit in AP. So it would be somewhat dependent on what post-secondary institution an individual is going to determine the type of college credit. But if it is AP, it is eligible for college credit based on performance on an exam.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Board President Nichols.
Thank you, Chair. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for this presentation tonight. I really appreciate the way that you all pulled the data together. I appreciated the transparency of seeing kind of the trend data as well as the proportionality and where, you know, where in some cases we're doing better and in some cases where we still have room to grow. I loved hearing La Follette, your story tonight, and just how hard you've worked to really increase the access and the retention. And I loved being able to see kind of the real tangible impact for students and obviously hearing from Lamine, so hearing from a student. I do have just 2 questions. The first one is related to our big district strategic framework goals and part of where we're focusing our energy on district improvement. So when I look at goal 1, which is every child is on track to graduate ready for college, career, and community, I know that we have a focus on high school completion. And I'm wondering, when it comes to this work around helping students actually earn college credit while in our high schools and or earning an industry certification, do we have a goal around that? Even if it's not sitting in the larger kind of district improvement plan around high school completion. I guess what I'm wondering is, have we set a goal around this that maybe is more internal than it is kind of out there on our district improvement plan right now?
Yep, I can start and then I will turn this over to Mitch and or Langston. We do not have a formalized goal as a district yet. When Dr. Gothard opened and as a team, when Dr. Gothard said, you know, we're at 61%, we would love to be at 100%. I think our goal eventually is to ensure that every student leaves with something that we believe is high value that leads them to post-secondary. As a team, the team has continuously set internal markers around the increase over time. Last year, we shared with the board and the year before some of our kind of increases that we'd like to see. But I'll turn it over to Mitch and or Langston to see if they want to add anything more to that outside of, we don't have something formalized that's outward facing. So Mitch or Langston, anything you would like to add?
I think I'll just echo that. Kind of starting last year with that November minor presentation that we gave, that was when we really started tracking these advanced courses as a group instead of individually. So we had been previously looking at how many students were earning college credit or how many students were earning CTE certifications. But now that we are recognizing that students are building these personalized paths towards their post-secondary futures, we are tracking kind of collectively who is leaving the district with something tangible. And internally, yeah, we're trying to grow that number as close to 100% as we can get. And yeah, we just want to ensure that we are getting students to the point where they are identifying what is coming next and then accelerating them on that path. So with the help of the RAI office, they've been terrific in getting us the data that we need to internally monitor this. And hopefully over the next couple of years, we'll continue to see it grow significantly.
Yeah, I would only just briefly add on this. This is part and parcel of our post-high school planning process. And so that students and families understand there are tangible credits and experiences that will transfer to actual benefits after I finish high school that every student can and should have based on the path that I am walking down right now. That doesn't mean you can't change your path, but we're expecting that. And as Mitch said, we just started tracking that last year, but then we're also putting that back on the students and their families to internally discuss what is my post-high school plan? How am I prepared to achieve one of these tangible credits or experiences that will actually either pay me money or get me college credit or something else that will launch me and accelerate me into my next step. So we haven't set an actual goal for each of these experiences because we're looking at them in a holistic fashion as it relates to students' post-secondary plans.
Okay, that makes sense to me. So what I hear you all saying is when we take a more holistic college career kind of community readiness approach and hold a vision for young people leaving MMSD ready to enter their next chapter, whatever that chapter may be, that they have had some opportunities while being in our school system to discover some of what interests them, to possibly earn some college credit if that's the pathway they want to go to possibly earn a certification, and to at least explore what some of the options might be, to have an internship. Okay, so that's super helpful. Because the reason I asked that, it is related to my second question, because when I heard our La Follette team talking and saying, here's all of the hard and, really meaningful work that we've put in to increase access, increase awareness, help students see themselves as, being an AP student, helping teachers, all teachers, thinking about ways to encourage students to get into AP courses and to take those exams. One of the things that stood out to me was when they were saying, we were kind of asking ourselves, like, who's kind of the lead in this? And I also heard you, Langston, saying that one of the next steps would be to improve processes and systems. So when I was thinking about, knowing who the people are, who are going to help create and sustain the processes and the systems. I guess I was just trying to figure out if we were staffed adequately, or do we have what we need to actually create and sustain and monitor the processes and systems with our college, career, and community kind of approach. So that's really my second question around the processes, the systems, and the staffing, kind of the people power in order for us to keep expanding and growing this. How
Yeah.
might you answer that? Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, I know. I think that's a great question, and I'm going to answer it in two parts. I think in short, we do, but I think it requires us to organize ourselves differently to prioritize the priority work. If this is a priority of something we want to ensure every student leaves MMSD with, then I think we think differently about how our leaders of our schools have their teams supported. So this for Darcy and Annie was kind of like grassroots, boots on the ground, and then kind of going up. And as they said, they've done an amazing job. But now it needs to kind of be taken over by both us at the system level to support and at the leadership level at the school. So I think in short for that part, we do. And I think it goes back to us thinking about how we organize our staff, our staffing plan, our people to prioritize the work. And I would say if it is about growing courses such as dual transcripted credited courses on our campuses, which is that first graph I talked about where we're seeing kind of the most overrepresentation of some of our student groups, I would say no, because that requires staff to have qualifications at the college level. And currently, depending on the content area, if we think about English for college level English courses that we would want to run on our campuses, we have very few of our current staff that have those qualifications. So I think it depends on what part of it, Board President Nichols, you want to think about. But on the one hand, I think to support students, I think we do, but to think about the actual coursework, I think we would want to really look into that for those areas.
Thank you so much. Well, I just want to say I really appreciate the way that this came forward tonight. And yeah, it's great work to be excited about. And I really appreciate the way you all decided to kind of put the information together tonight. And also bringing in just that tangible benefit for students. So deep appreciations.
Board Member Castro.
Thank you. So thanks y'all tonight for sharing the areas we've made progress and areas where we may need some improvement tonight. I had one question / suggestion on another way to look at the data, and then I had a question about how we set students up for success in taking these classes. So I was wondering if we could look at it another way and the percentage of for example, white students who take AP courses instead of looking at the other way around that was presented tonight, if that makes sense. So like of white students, the percent who take an AP course, or of students with disabilities, XYZ could be another interesting way to look at it. And then I was wondering, what do y'all view as things we do in middle school that sets these students up for success and being prepared to take AP courses? And then, sorry, last question. It does not, I do not forget that AP courses are kind of a finite resource. You know, there's only X amount of seats any given year. So what can the district do to increase capacity for AP seats?
So to answer your first question, I think we could have a conversation with our AI department to see about presenting the data differently. So that is, we will get back to you and see on that, but thank you for that suggestion. In terms of middle school, I do think that Langston and Mitch can talk about some of the work we're doing around academic and career planning, and also some of the early exploration work we're doing in CTE that I think are really great launch pads for high school. So I'll turn it over to them to answer that part, and then I'll come back to your third question.
I can start, and then I'll pass it to Mitch to talk about the expansion of CTE. So in terms of in middle school, it is really part of our conversation that we're having with students as they enter middle school about the trajectory of learning and what course possibilities are in both middle school and high school, and understanding where they can challenge themselves and what that looks like in the types of courses they can take and might choose to take. And so it really picks up speed as they have more opportunities in their 8th to 9th transition. And then there are specific lessons that break down what earned honors are, what the possibilities for advanced coursework are, including our college academies, early college, and AP.
Yeah, and from a CTE perspective, in order for students to know like what they might want to do or what they might want to take, they have to know themselves. They have to know what they are interested in, what they enjoy doing. And so, leveraging all of the terrific work happening at the middle schools from the CCCR point of view, and then attaching that to like coursework, having students reflect on those college career and community readiness activities, and talking about these are the courses that are aligned with the things that you're saying that you are interested in, is a major step. From CTE perspective, we are continuing to expand the number of CTE courses available at the middle school level. We've been expanding 2 programs per year over the last 3 school years. We know we're never going to get to a place, or I shouldn't say that, but it's going to be very difficult to get to a place where every single CTE program could be existing at every single middle school, just like space limited, et cetera. But so we've been pushing into summer semester as a means for getting students to be exposed to CTE programs that might not be available at the middle school level at this time. We did the CTE discovery camps, which were a big success in getting students to dabble in, and even just for a couple of days, experience what is available to them at the high schools. And the more that we invest in that, I think students will be coming to the high schools with an understanding of what is available to them, and will be kind of further along their path.
And then board member Castro, wrong meeting, not ops. Board member Castro, I'll answer, or I'll start to answer your third question around like additional seats. I think this goes back to a little bit of what Megan said, and how we also shared the different opportunities for students. So I think continuing to expand opportunities, not one single type, like just AP courses, but continuing to grow the opportunities for students in both the areas that the career clusters tell us that are setting them up for post-high school, as well as what we're learning from our students in terms of areas of interest and also workforce demands, right? Part of what we are also learning is how our area is continuing to grow in certain career sectors. And so we want to think about how that coursework continues to evolve. So I think as we do that, as the board also continues to invest in some of these opportunities, more seats open up. But I think that's all part of the considerations that we will take into account. I think very tangibly, if there are more students that want to take a particular AP course, this is really how our high school principals make decisions about their allocation and their workbook for the following year. Our high school principals use course selection when making decisions about how many staff they're going to put in each content area and how many staff they'll put in each particular course. So a lot of that is already driven by student interest, and I think our principals use that, and as they continue to use that, that will help open up the seats if there's more interest for students. So hopefully that provides a little bit of a couple different ways that we think about it for access.
Thank you. That was definitely helpful. And I'll just part by saying I think such a big recipe for success for learning for students is just the belief and self-confidence in themselves as learners. And so just having the exposure to more rigorous content from their teachers or mentors or guidance counselors really goes a long way towards their self-belief as learners. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Board Member Pearson?
Yeah, I'll just thank you all for the presentation, and thanks to board members that asked the questions. Some of my questions were already answered, but I guess I'll just make a quick comment. I think it would be interesting to know, and again, you don't have to add this, but just my thought process and thinking about some of the data that was shared with us, what amount of students, if we're thinking about who has access to what amount of students that are taking these opportunities are students who may be first gen in their family, as far as like college going. We all know that if you are the first person in your family to possibly have the opportunity to go to college, it definitely changes of what information you have readily available and what information that you even have to seek out. And so like on one front, I appreciate the statements that were mentioned just about like, trying to get families more involved and get parents more involved, but you only know so much as what you know. And so I'm grateful that we're all looking at making sure that we are also telling families the importance and what kind of things that we can gain, because as we do think about some of our students that may benefit from some of these programs, some of them are helping their families pay for housing expenses. So they may not be able to be a part of a bunch of extracurricular activities, but want to still make sure that they're going to college and or obtaining a post-secondary degree, no matter what, or going to a career field. So having opportunities such as these are super important. And so my hope is that we continue kind of looking at those students as well, because that, as we know of like how expensive it is to live in Madison and the surrounding areas, we're starting to see more and more families being put into that space where some of the high school students are having to help support their families financially. And then also for some of those students, as we are seeing people come into Madison as whole or into this country as a whole, may not have those opportunities elsewhere. So it's just a comment that I wanted to make. And then my last comment is thank you, the La Follette team, for being here. I appreciate that context, because I think as we're looking at our counselors, my daughter, as I mentioned earlier, is a freshman. And I'm like, talk to your counselor. And she's like, she's so busy. Counselors, you all have like 300 plus students, depending on where you're at and what school you're at. And so the load being put on you to kind of solve those things in community with teachers and other educators is important. But then, going back to, I think, a statement that one board member mentioned just about how do we make sure that this is sustainable, and that we're trying to put as much support in place to kind of help that work as well, and what opportunities we may have to not necessarily just take what we've learned at La Follette and kind of help with other schools to make that happen. So thank you all for the presentation. I just wanted to mention those two things. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Vice President Pearson. I am seeing no other questions. I just want to emphasize how powerful it was to hear from our students this evening, including our board rep, Megan, in emphasizing like the opportunities that exist, what they mean to you, how hard our staff works to make sure young people have the accommodations they need, reminding us all that there is a tremendous amount of work that goes into supporting these opportunities for young people and making sure that young people are able to represent their skills and achieve the things that they need. I want to thank our La Follette educators. And before we let you go, I just want to ask, is there anything else that you all would like us as a board to know about the work you're doing at La Follette? I was really deeply impressed by the work you all presented, and particularly the graph you all presented really happens during the pandemic. So not only are you all reestablishing this work during virtual learning, but you're recovering this work over the course of the last few years. And it's not lost on me as somebody who joined this board in 2019. what a tremendous effort that is and how much that has taken from the people who work for this district. Is there anything else you all want to highlight for us in terms of your work at La Follette?
I don't think so. I think we were able to share what we were hoping to say, but we also appreciate this space to lift up the work we've been doing, and also in hopes that it can support students in other schools throughout the district.
Thank you all so much for joining us this evening, for emphasizing the work you're doing at La Follette specifically. Cindy Green, I just want to reiterate on slide 12, you all emphasize that the average student is not just graduating with a couple college credits, but is at leaving our district having completed the first semester of their freshman year in college. And we have students who are entering college as sophomores. And I think that for me, as a young person who grew up in poverty, it's tremendously meaningful. You also emphasize the cost savings. So there's an estimated $5,736,000 in tuition that our students have saved by accessing college credit in high school. And I think that is something that we need to celebrate. I think it's the material benefit when we say college, career, and community ready. I think that this is really manifesting that value set for us as a district. I know that the data presented is not exhaustive. It's not everything we're doing. I know that we certify students to be lifeguards and that there are things that didn't kind of rise to this presentation. However, this was a really expansive conversation, and I'm tremendously grateful that we got to have it and get to emphasize the work of our educators and the benefits it has for our young people this evening. We have one more topic, and we're going to dive into that. So we will now move on to kind of a brief update on co-curriculars before we close out for the night.
Thank you, Board Chair Muldrow, and thank you again to the team that was here tonight. Thank you again to Annie and Darcy. Thank you to Lamine, if he is still on here. Hopefully he's off somewhere doing some homework or going to bed or playing tennis. Who knows of all of his things. But thank you to everyone in my team. I really appreciate everyone. Okay, so we are going to do a quick update on co-curriculars. I have Jeremy Schlitz, who is our Director of Athletics. I have Mary Roth, who is our Executive Director of MSCR, and Mitch Starosik, who you all heard from before, our Director of CTE. These three individuals are going to share just a couple highlights around co-curriculars. A reminder to the board that you have this in memo form, because this was our minor for the night. I want to kind of just say two things, and then I'll turn it over to the team. Our definition of co-curriculars. So co-curricular programs are activities sponsored by a school that are not part of the academic curriculum, but are acknowledged to be essential to our overall learning process in school. While athletics, music, speech and debate, and theater are some of our most common co-curriculars, other programs offered by state associations include academic competition, journalism, robotics, chess, etc. So I just wanted to ground us in our district definition of co-curriculars. I also want to mention about some research. The emphasis on co-curricular activities is born in the belief that encouraging participation in these opportunities is one lever by which the district can improve students' sense of belonging, peer relationships, engagement, and ultimately academic outcomes. As the board knows, we have really been spending the last few years on looking at our co-curricular data to understand who is participating and to think about where we need opportunities for improvement. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy and Mary. Jeremy or Mary, do you want the memo presented at all on the screen to walk through? Would that be helpful?
That works, or if they have it in front of them, we can just talk to a couple of the highlights. I appreciate the time that we're being given here to kind of talk about the out of school time based upon the in school time we spent here and how those work together. So whatever the board members would prefer, I think we can touch on some key points from the memo if they have those in front of them, or go ahead and pull it up.
Board Chair Muldrow, would you prefer that we share the screen so at least you could see the memo in reference?
I would greatly appreciate you all sharing the screen. And then if board members want to kind of dive into the memo or have any questions, we'll start from there. Board members, how would you like to discuss the memo as it relates to co-curriculars?
Board chair, is it okay if Jeremy and Mary just go through a couple of highlights in the memo first and then open it up for discussion? Will that work?
Absolutely, that's
Okay.
perfect. I do see board member Castro's hand up, and I do know board members were provided with this memo beforehand. However, I do think it's helpful to the greater community if we kind of let folks know where we're landing and then dive into the conversation as a group.
Sounds good. Jeremy, I'll turn it over to you just to do a couple of highlights and then to Mary.
Great. Yeah, I think an easy way for those of you obviously having seen it before, if you wanted to just scroll down to page 2 there, Cindy, as we talk about some of the things that we've done around our strategies and investment in co-curriculars. I'm fortunate enough to be kind of pulling together a cross-functional team that meets regularly, just to kind of look at some additional opportunities we can provide, maybe to shift some resources and really to address student interest as that continues to evolve. And last year, we focused on a few different things, and I think one way we can kind of walk through it is as we would from a 6th grader through a 12th grader. So, Mary, if you want to share just some of the last year investments that MSCR took and what we saw there.
Yes, thank you, Jeremy, and thank you, board, for having us this evening. So for MSCR, we are operating the vast majority of the co-curriculars at the middle school level. So we do also have co-curricular opportunities at high school, but really in a middle school context, it's almost 100% of what's offered to students. So in 23-24, we really focused on increasing participation in middle school athletics. That's something that had been sort of off the radar a little bit during the pandemic. We also are really focusing on offering consistent access to student leadership and identity groups. So our BSUs, GSAs, a variety of different girl groups to give students that connection that they need in out of school time and develop those leadership skills. And then our third sort of core point that we focus on in after school programming at middle school is around providing academic enrichment. So while there are some tutoring opportunities, really some of the more STEM focused activities to really pique interests for students and tie back into their school day learning, but in a different context. And I'll pass it back to Jeremy for some of the other work that we've done across middle schools and high schools.
Yeah, well, one thing we identified from community and students and our high school students was that transition piece from the 8th grade to the 9th grade year, and how we could maybe address that to make our programs to the high school a little bit more accessible. Last spring, we piloted volleyball, cross-country wrestling, dance, and cheerleading with the high school coaches at the high schools for those feeder pattern programs. And because of the significant investment from our 2020 referendum, we had these increased space and programs. I wanted to show that to our middle school students, just so they had a little bit more of a connection to the broader feeder pattern community that they've got, and to meet some of their coaches at the high school programs. And I think the Lamine story, and he mentioned his science teacher, Emma Watermolen, she's also a tennis coach. And I can't help but recognize the connection that we make when our staff are able to connect with students in many different ways and through their passions. And that, in fact, from that spring program has been twofold with additional opportunities that we provided to middle school students. We saw a higher participation rate this fall in our high school athletics, specifically in volleyball for both our boys and girls that chose to participate in that at the high school level, which has just absolutely been excellent. And I think, and Mitch spoke a little bit around the CTE part. It's what we're looking at, as we transition. There's also some CTSOs that we do in the co-curricular space, clubs related to that curriculum work that are doing similar things. And when we talk about strategies that we're going to kind of move forward to, I think that's one of the ways that we can expand. And we talked about in that cross-functional team is to do this in many of our different programs and those programs that happen outside of school, connecting them with our CTE programs and transitioning those CTSOs. And Mitch, I don't know if there was anything you wanted to add around those parts and their co-curricular component.
Yeah, I just want to quickly highlight some of the investments that we made for CTSOs. Because they are so valuable in their connection to the CTE programs of study and the opportunities they provide for competition, scholarship, certification attainment. We recognize that there were a number of students that were not participating in CTSOs because of financial barriers for registration with like the state chapter. There were travel costs associated to get to the state and national competitions. And so we actually reserved some centralized budget for each localized school chapter to pay for all the entry fees for students to join the chapter and to participate in these competitions. And as a result, we've seen like a threefold increase in the number of students that have been participating in CTSOs just in the last 2 years. And then additionally, we've also been recognizing CTE clubs that are not official state of Wisconsin CTSOs, but serve largely the same purpose. Things like the Pro Start Culinary competition team that goes around the state and competes against other high schools in culinary competitions, offers the same level of service and engagement that a registered CTSO does, but now we're recognizing it and providing some additional funding to those types of programs as well. And all of this is part of the story that we're trying to ensure that the students that have found or are exploring their passions, that we are reducing the barriers to get engaged with those kinds of opportunities.
And then just kind of, to sum it up, and I'll let Mary finish with some of the key and data-driven investments that we made, but that cross-functional team is, to continue to collaborate and build on what Mitch was just talking about there, and hopefully expand our middle school transition programming. A lot of that is, we're doing some work with the transportation team and really making feeder pattern connections from high school staff along with their 3 middle school, feeding them, and eventually, hopefully, working that down into our elementary schools. The outreach from the feeder programs and, the community schools that target discrepancies in participants accessing programs is going to be an important component of the work we do this year. And then really just to prepare for the potential facility impacts, related to the referendum and expansion of programming and what we could maybe do at those middle school sites to address the interests of our students. And then Mary, I'll let you kind of finish off the summary with what you have going on this year for MSCR.
Sure. Thanks, Jeremy. I think the really key thing for us to highlight at MSCR is for this 24-25 school year, we made a really significant investment in staffing. So we expanded from 6.0 FTEs to 11.0 FTEs supporting after school in middle schools. So that really is going to create a much more consistent experience across schools. Historically, we've seen a lot of really staff-driven discrepancies across schools. So building that consistency. And the other really key thing that we've been able to accomplish so far for 24-25 is that we now have transportation home at 6 p.m. at all 12 middle schools. So we started 23-24 with 1 school that had transportation. We ended with about 7, and we're now in all 12. So that really helps provide access for those middle school students who don't have other transportation. And then with that, we're going to continue to build on those sort of 3 core pillars, and then looking really at adapting to modified school start times. After school time has gotten a lot shorter since we've moved to releasing after 4 p.m. So we are adding before school programming at many sites, as well as exploring lunchtime opportunities to really provide opportunities for any students who want to engage with co-curriculars at the middle school level, and also looking at who might not be able to stay after school. So I think across the board, the data that we've presented certainly shows increases in participation in most groups over the last 3 years, and we all across middle school and high school expect that these strategies will continue to increase that, and also looking at how we increase engagement of the students who are participating as well.
Jesse, would you mind taking us off screen share? Thank you, Mary, Mitch, and Jeremy for sharing that. Board of Education and Board Chair Mulder, I hope that tonight you're able to see that our teams are really trying to build on strategies, system-wide strategies that we've started over the last few years and use that continuous improvement process to understand what barriers have been getting in the way, where we can remove barriers, where we can think about investments to continue to provide opportunities for students. While Mary mentioned, the majority of the data is showing that we're continuing to increase access for students in co-curriculars. We have areas of opportunity that we still need to improve, but we're continuing to work on that because we know this is a really important aspect of creating well-rounded students, creating students that are college career community, and really creating students that have all of these opportunities during the school day and outside of the school day. So with that, Board Chair, I will turn it back over to you to see what questions the group may have.
Thank you so much, Cindy Green. I saw Board Member Castro's hand up first, and then Board Member Vandermillen, and then Board Member Mosner-Falcom.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing us this data tonight. I know that this is kind of our first run at this conversation as we dig more into it as a board to see what's going on. And very interested to learn more about the stories and the why behind the numbers. These things are sports and arts are very important to me. I don't think I would have made it through high school without them. They are very important to our learning development of young people. But yeah, I think as we continue this conversation moving forward, I'm most interested in how we can link this with our budget and the board's investments. On that end, I saw large disparity between students involved who are economically disadvantaged and not, so that jumped off the page. And yeah, thinking about how the district fits into the larger ecosystem. I know that a lot of these things are becoming privatized and such. And so that has implications and consequences for who can access them. And so how the district can provide these things at a universal level.
Thank you.
Meh. My question is also on transportation. I know we provide after school buses back. Do we also provide a bus to the game for middle school students who might not be able to get to an athletic or an academic competition? And how is that done?
For our middle school athletics, we do provide transportation to and from the game. We have some families who pick up from games, but we do provide that round trip transportation. That is a limitation. It's much better this year than it's been the last 2 years. So far we're on a positive upward trajectory with access to busing for middle school competitions.
Wonderful, thank you.
Board Member Mosner-Feltman, and then Board President Nichols, you're on deck.
First, thank you for working on this. This is really exciting. I'm especially excited to hear about I knew about, but to hear in public at this moment about the increase in FTE for middle schools and that transportation for middle schools is so awesome and exciting and great. I wanted you to know that I feel really excited about the possibility of their programming morning lunch, and especially excited about the idea about like PD day programming or no school day programming. That's really, really exciting. And I think that there's lots of super cool ways that could go. I have 2, maybe 3 questions. My first is just like a real technical question, and maybe nobody would be able to answer it. Maybe I should ask RAI, but like a student shows up in my classroom every Tuesday for like I don't know, history club. That's not like necessarily, it's definitely not a registered CTE org, definitely not like that. Maybe it's on a list somewhere. Maybe it's just 10 kids who want to hang out at lunch and talk about the same thing every week. Like, do we feel that like all of those types of sort of like co-curriculars that aren't necessarily connected to a state org or connected to like a competition circuit, like are those all in this data? Are we collecting that data, do we think, effectively?
Jeremy, you want to start and then I'll follow.
This was the difficult part, is setting a baseline, which we really worked on 2 years ago. And I think the fidelity of the data is increased dramatically. I know we roster, 100 plus or minus 20, depending on the high school and time of year, clubs at each one of our comprehensive high schools right now. And I think we've done a really intentional and good job at the school level of making those, what used to be considered, informal touch points, to be counted for, because they have similar impacts when we're talking about, what we traditionally thought of as co-curriculars. So I think there's always room for improvement on the fidelity of data, but I think it's really done a nice job of making sure that we're comparing appropriately what we're doing for increasing our numbers of students accessing programming.
That number is really, really helpful, hearing that all of the comprehensive high schools are rostering 100 or 110 or 120 clubs. That really helps give me a picture of what this data is telling me. So thank you for that.
Blair, I'll add one thing that I think is important to note, like outside of standardizing how we roster, we have not counted dosage, right? Meaning
I
like
saw
how
that.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that was understood. Okay, keep going.
Yep. Another question I have sort of along the lines of that, and to the information here that CTE has reserved funding to be able to pay for some of the stuff that's been prohibitive for students in joining these co-curriculars is super great. And I wonder about the people who are running them. I know that there are some clubs that have funding for advisors and some clubs that don't. Has there been any conversation about standardizing that in any way beyond the CTSOs and the other CTE related clubs, or is this sort of like CTE's got the budget and the desire, so this is where it's happening? Poetry clubs just sort of going to stay unfunded. What do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I'll start and then I'll turn it over to Jeremy. I think that there's variation across our schools in terms of that, and there is information, or not information, it is in our handbook as well, which might be one of our areas that we want to look at. There are budgetary implications, but it is outlined in our handbook in terms of how pay for advisors works, depending on the type of club. And there's schools kind of use their budget along with the handbook to make those decisions, but there are variations. Board member Feltham, and not every club, as defined on this memo, leaders of the club or staff that might be running it receive the same level of compensation. But I'll let Jeremy, I see he came off mute, so I don't know if he wants to add anything to that.
Yeah, I think Cindy covered a lot of it, and I do know, similar to when we talked about allocation for classes based upon course selection, our high school principals also have similar allocation when we talk about, advisors in Model UN or drama debate forensics or other non-CTSO clubs. Obviously, we're not able to cover all 106 that I talk about, at a certain school, but those that have a high number of students often are those positions that get compensated at this time, and always a balance there of what we want to offer. And also I think what we're hearing from our staff is some of those things are things that they want to be part of and want to do and want to connect with the students. And if they do it more informally, they aren't as driven by being compensated for it as well.
Thanks. I think something I'll be interested in long term, not tonight, but I'll be interested to get more understanding of sort of like, and a bunch of you have heard me talk about this before, like what's the intellectual and temporal budget for our staff as they're working on 5 full-time sections, often full, and also taking on these types of super intensive and important roles. And how are we like holistically thinking about that when we think about our staffing model broadly, and when we're thinking long term about what's going to make MMSD a place that people really want to work to be able to provide the best opportunities for students long term, right? Like 3, 4, 5 years, I'll be interested to see sort of like how we can get our heads around that. And I think that's it for me. This is really exciting to come up. I remember a couple of years ago it coming up, and I'm really happy to see where you've taken it. So thanks a lot.
Let me go next, Ali.
Thank you
Chair
so much, Board
Muldrow?
President. No worries. Thank you so much,
Hi.
Board President Nichols.
Yes, thank you. Well, I'm also excited. I remember when we first started talking about this a couple of years ago. And so just to see what you all have been able to do, not only in collecting the data and starting to become more systematized around that, and also just seeing what we've done with middle school students is really exciting. I do have a couple of questions. One is, do you all have any insights from the students who are not currently engaging in co-curriculars? I don't know if there's been any opportunity to do maybe some student interviews or getting a sense from staff on what might be some of the reasons that students may not be choosing co-curriculars that are sponsored at the school. Yeah, just wondering if you've had any opportunity to just hear more about what might be getting in the way.
Yeah,
Jeremy, go ahead.
I can jump in. I think, the easiest way we've been able to find that is, through focus groups and that student organizations or going to classes or having a small group of students that we can identify. And we hear a number of different topics. Some of them are their level of comfort when they haven't had experience versus those that have had experience prior to high school, when we talk about athletics. Some of it is just similar to what was mentioned, just the time capacity that we have, with the responsibilities they have both for their schoolwork, but also, their responsibilities to their families and also to jobs. And, I think the earlier presentation kind of pointed towards there's many different ways that they're using their out of school time, whether that's work, whether that's family, whether that's additional enrichment activities. And I think that's what we're hearing mostly, along with just feeling as though you have a connection to somebody in that program or in that school that you feel welcomed to join. And that's something I think that's been really the intentional work, whether that's around our transition from 8th to 9th grade or some of the other, things that we put in place. I think oftentimes it was most the invitation to be part of something was the one that they were not having. And I think we've addressed some of that where we've seen our data increase that way. But there will be students that don't have an interest outside of that family or work out of school time. And they prioritize, I think, was probably the clearest message that we heard.
Jeremy, when you're talking, are you referring mostly at the high school level?
Yeah, we haven't
Okay.
been able to bring that down. I think that's what we're going to kind of try to work towards. I mean, we haven't had as much, intentionality at the middle school yet. And I think Mary's done a great job of staffing it to the point where we'll be able to get that feedback where we're not getting that at the middle school level as well.
I would echo what Jeremy said about students feeling an invitation, and that was a key component of why we wanted to increase the staffing, to allow those staff to be present during the school day to make connections with school-based staff as well as school students during sort of lunch hours, things like that, where they can really build relationship and invite students in. Another piece that we are really looking at middle school this year is, as MMSD is a core partner in the Madison Out of School Time MOST project, we actually also have a full data set of students who are participating in other providers programming because there are a lot of other providers in the
Yes.
network of providers, community centers, other agencies. So that's a data set that we have access to look at our, if students are accessing services and receiving high quality services from a partner organization, then their needs are being met in a way that works for them and their family.
Yeah. And Mary, that was going to be my second question. It was about, Madison out of school time, all of the partner organizations, and if we had a way to capture the number of students who are maybe not at a school-sponsored co-curricular, but are definitely at a community center or with a community-based organization. So this is just one way that I would love to be able to see the data in the future is maybe being able to bring that piece in. Because we may say 56% of our students are participating in school-sponsored co-curriculars, and perhaps there's another 30% of students who are engaged with a partner organization co-curricular that now we're talking about 80-something%. I'm making up numbers, obviously, on the 30% because I haven't seen the data, but we might be actually looking at a much higher percentage of students who are engaged in some kind of, before, after, out of school time activity that's really meaningful for them. And I think that gets to the spirit of what we were really getting after when we started to talk about the importance of co-curriculars and helping students discover their identities, their passions, their talents, and to make meaningful relationships. So yeah, thank you for speaking to that.
You got it. We can bring that data back. And as a partner in most, we have we have identifiers. So we can tell if it's the same kids or different kids, which is really an incredible data set to have to work from in the out of school time space.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Board Vice President Pearson.
I just want to give a lot of gratitude to y'all for bringing us back about the transportation piece, because that was something that I had brought up before about just the making sure that students can participate in the transportation. And the reason why I want to give this further is because my kid just walked in the door from volleyball at her middle school. And I was like, how did you get home? Did you walk? And she said, no, I got a ride. And I was like, who dropped you off? And she was just like, they provided transportation for me. So it was something that was happening in real time as you all were talking. So thank you from board member, but also from parent. So.
Thank you so much, Board Vice President Pearson. I'm not seeing other hands from my fellow board members. I'm so grateful for this presentation or these presentations this evening. I don't think there's a better note to end on than what Board Vice President Pearson brought into the conversation. We've got a motion to adjourn from Board Member Vandermolen. Can I get a second?
Second,
Thank
Maya.
you so much.
Second.
Thank you, Vice President Pearson. All those in favor? Aye. Have a lovely night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
love
Take
this
good care.
tonight.